Let's step back to the 1940s, the height of World War II. The U.S. Navy was desperate for an edge. Submarines prowled the seas, sinking ships at alarming rates. Every convoy risked being torn apart by German U-boats. What if a ship could sail without being seen? Not hidden by camouflage, but literally invisible. Sounds like science fiction, right? Yet this is exactly what the Philadelphia experiment claims. The story begins with a ship called the USS Eldridge, destroyer escort, launched in 1943. Officially, it was meant to guard convoys. Unofficially, legends say it was part of a bizarre experiment. The U.S. Navy allegedly worked with Nikola Tesla's ideas. Some even link Albert Einstein's unified field theory to the project. The goal: bend light around a ship to make it vanish. Invisibility through science. But things supposedly went far beyond invisibility. Witnesses would later claim teleportation. Others whispered about men fused into steel, and sailors driven mad by forces no human should endure. So how did this tale emerge? It starts with a letter in 1955. A man named Carlos Allende wrote to a researcher. He claimed he saw the Eldridge disappear in Philadelphia in 1943. Not vanish like a cloud of smoke, to vanish like it was never there. Allen described green haze surrounding the ship, a blinding flash of light, then silence. The Eldridge gone. Minutes later it reappeared. Some say, not in the same place. Others insist it appeared hundreds of miles away in Norfolk, Virginia. Teleportation across states. Too wild to believe, yet Allen wrote with alarming confidence. He even included technical-sounding notes about magnetic fields. The researcher he wrote to was Morris K. Jessup. Jessup studied UFOs and fringe science. The letter fascinated him. And so, the Philadelphia experiment legend was born. But let's rewind. What exactly was the Navy accused of doing? According to the story, they wrapped the Eldridge in powerful electromagnetic fields. Generators pulsed currents through massive coils. These fields bent light, warping space around the ship. At least, that's how the tale goes. When the field switched on, the ship shimmered in a green fog, then disappeared completely. Sailors on nearby ships supposedly gasped in disbelief. The Eldridge wasn't cloaked. It was gone. Some witnesses claimed to see it flicker back into view. Others said it reappeared far away, then returned. This is where the story gets darker. When the ship reappeared, something was wrong. Some crew members were missing. Others were horribly injured. A few were said to be fused into the metal deck. Their bodies trapped, half men, half steel. Others lost their minds, babbling nonsense. Some vanished entirely, and a few supposedly caught fire spontaneously. The experiment had gone too far. A success? Or a disaster? The Navy quickly shut it down, so the story goes. Records were buried, survivors were silenced, and the Eldridge went back to normal duty. Yet the whispers never stopped. Why did Allen know so much? Why did Jessup take him seriously? And why did the Navy stay so quiet? Skeptics argue the whole thing was nonsense. They say Allen was delusional, that Jessup was gullible, that no such experiment ever happened. But the story refuses to die, because it mixes the perfect ingredients: war, secrecy, and science gone wrong. People wanted to believe, and strange details kept surfacing. Even stranger, Jessup later received a copy of his own book, annotated with comments. The notes spoke of aliens, advanced technology, and secret Navy experiments. They seemed to match Allen's earlier letters. The Navy actually examined this annotated book, known now as the Vero edition. Why would the Navy care if it was all nonsense? That added fuel to the fire. To this day, conspiracy theorists point to the Vero edition as proof of a cover-up. But was there really a disappearing ship, or just a disappearing line between fact and fiction? To answer that, we need to dig deeper into the supposed witnesses, into the physics, into the Navy's own records. Because the Philadelphia experiment might not be what it seems. Next, we'll test the legend against reality. Ready to step further into the fog? The story of the Philadelphia experiment spread quickly after Carl Allen's letters. But legends don't survive without juicy details, and this one had plenty. Eyewitnesses claimed they saw the USS Eldridge vanish from its dock in Philadelphia. Then, in an instant, the ship reappeared in Norfolk, Virginia, hundreds of miles away. And it supposedly happened in front of stunned sailors who didn't believe their own eyes. Some said they could see crew members standing on deck one moment, then gone the next. According to these accounts, the Eldridge didn't fade, it blinked like a light switched off. It wasn't smoke and mirrors. It was as if the ship had stepped out of reality. This wasn't just invisibility, it was teleportation. At least that's what the rumors claimed. But the darker part of the story was what happened to the crew. Witnesses whispered that when the ship reappeared, something went terribly wrong. Some sailors were said to be fused into the metal of the hull, bodies trapped inside steel walls, as if they had melted into it. Others were burned, their skin scorched by unknown energy. A few were driven insane, wandering aimlessly, muttering nonsense. And some, the story goes, vanished forever. Never seen again, as if still floating in whatever void the ship passed through. It sounded like science fiction horror, but to many, it felt chillingly possible. After all, World War II was a time when new, terrifying technologies were everywhere. Radar had appeared almost overnight. The atomic bomb had flattened entire cities. Why not invisibility next? To believers, the Philadelphia experiment was the next logical step. And if the U.S. military had cracked it, no wonder they kept it secret. But others asked, where's the evidence? That's where the story gets tricky. No official Navy records mention anything like this. The USS Eldridge did exist, but its service records don't match the timeline of the story. The Navy insists the ship was never even in Philadelphia during the supposed experiment. Skeptics argue the whole tale came from a misunderstanding. Maybe sailors had seen experiments with degaussing, a real technique. Degaussing used electric cables to make ships less visible to magnetic mines. From a distance, it might have looked like glowing arcs of electricity. And to an imaginative mind, that could become a vanishing ship. But for conspiracy believers, the Navy's denials only made the story stronger. Of course, the government would deny it, they always do. And the horrifying tales of the crew were too specific to ignore. Sailors melting into steel? Minds broken by unseen forces? It sounded like a cover-up of an experiment gone horribly wrong. Some even tied the story to Albert Einstein's unified field theory. Einstein was trying to link electromagnetism and gravity into a single framework. What if the Navy had weaponized it? What if the Eldridge was their test subject? That would explain teleportation, invisibility, and all the bizarre side effects. But there's a catch. Einstein never finished that theory. And no physicist has ever made it work since. Still, for conspiracy theorists, the connection was irresistible. It gave the story scientific weight, even if the science didn't add up. Sometimes mystery is more powerful than facts. And the Philadelphia experiment had plenty of mystery. Too many sailors seemed to remember it. Too many strange letters kept appearing. Too many books, TV specials, and rumors kept the story alive. The experiment refused to die. Decades later, people were still asking questions. Did the Eldridge vanish? Did the Navy teleport a warship in 1943? Or was it the greatest hoax in military history? The lines between truth and fiction blurred more with each retelling. And soon, the story would spread far beyond Carl Allen's letters. Journalists, authors, and even movie producers jumped in. The Philadelphia experiment had gone mainstream, and once Hollywood grabbed it, the legend exploded. The more people talked, the stranger the claims became. Some said the experiment didn't just move the Eldridge through space, it moved it through time. Stories popped up about sailors who vanished in 1943 only to reappear decades later. Others claimed secret files proved the experiment was part of a larger project. A project not about winning World War II but controlling the future itself. To skeptics, these were wild stories fueled by rumor and science fiction. To believers, they were breadcrumbs of the truth. And truth, they argued, was always stranger than fiction, especially when the government was involved. After all, if you had the power to bend reality, wouldn't you keep it secret too? The Philadelphia experiment wasn't just about one ship. It became a symbol of hidden science. Proof that governments play with forces beyond our understanding. Proof that history has secrets still waiting to be exposed. Proof that reality itself might not be as solid as we think. And yet, after all the rumors, we're still left with one question. Did it ever happen at all? Or was the entire Philadelphia experiment nothing more than a story? A story built from letters, imagination, and fear of the unknown. The truth is hard to pin down, and maybe that's the point, because every version of the tale leaves us wondering. Wondering about what humans are capable of? Wondering how far science can go? Wondering what's hidden in secret labs and naval bases even today? The Philadelphia experiment is less a story of war and more a story of curiosity. Still, curiosity cuts both ways. Ask too many questions, and you might not like the answers. If the experiment was real, it suggests a terrifying truth. That reality can break. That humans have already found ways to tear holes in it. Next, we'll see how this legend refuses to die. It became tangled with UFOs, Montauk conspiracies, and secret time travel. The Philadelphia experiment didn't end in 1943. In many ways, that was only the beginning. The story of the Philadelphia experiment refuses to die. If anything, it grows stranger with each telling. By the 1950s, writers and conspiracy theorists were passing it around like secret knowledge. The idea of a ship made invisible by science captured imaginations everywhere. Some believed it was proof of a government cover-up. Others thought it was an exaggeration of routine radar experiments. But the tale kept spreading. And with each retelling, new horrors emerged. Witnesses claimed the crew paid the ultimate price. Some sailors, they said, never returned to solid reality. They were fused into the metal decks of the ship. Their bodies half in, half out of the steel hull. Trapped, alive, until death mercifully came. Other sailors were said to vanish at random. In bars, in their homes, in the middle of a sentence. They blinked out of existence, then back again, sometimes reappearing days later, dazed and burned. The story painted them as human test subjects, forever haunted by the government's pursuit of invisibility. Think about it, what if their atoms were scrambled? What if the teleportation tore reality open? People whispered of time travel, of sailors thrown forward or backward in history. Men lost to eras not their own. Stories claimed some even saw alien landscapes, or other dimensions where the laws of physics bent. But the most famous horror remained the fusions. Sailors melded with steel was an image that stuck, turned the tale from sci-fi into nightmare. Skeptics rolled their eyes, of course. They pointed out the lack of physical proof. No photos, no bodies, no Navy records. But believers had an answer: cover-up. The Navy, they argued, buried everything, destroyed the logs, silenced the sailors, erased the past. And if the experiment worked, wouldn't they hide it? Imagine the military value of invisibility, entire fleets sneaking past enemy radar, or weapons teleporting directly into enemy territory. Too powerful to reveal, too dangerous to control. Theories spread into UFO culture. Some linked it to alien technology, others tied it to Nikola Tesla's research. His experiments with electricity, they said, inspired the project. Whether true or not, Tesla became part of the legend, as if science fiction needed a famous scientist cameo. Then, in 1955, author Maurice Jessup published The Case for the UFO, a book exploring advanced propulsion and strange sightings. Soon after, he received bizarre letters from a man named Carlos Allende. Allende claimed to have witnessed the Philadelphia experiment. He wrote about sailors vanishing into thin air, about bodies fused to decks, about the Navy silencing everyone who talked. Jessup was intrigued and terrified. His book became tied forever to the experiment. And the legend leapt from whispered rumor to printed story. The government even made it weirder. A Navy research office marked up Jessup's book with Allen's notes. They mailed it back to him. Why? No one knows. To debunk it? To warn him? To laugh at him? Or to let him know they were watching? Jessup's life spiraled after that. He grew paranoid, convinced something bigger lurked. Then, in 1959, he was found dead in his car. The official ruling? Suicide. Conspiracy theorists weren't so sure. To them, Jessup became the experiment's first victim on land. His death cemented the myth's reputation. It was no longer a sailor's ghost story. It became a cursed subject, dangerous to investigate. By the 1970s, the story evolved again. A film called The Philadelphia Experiment hit theaters. Hollywood added romance, time travel, and drama. But beneath the special effects was a chilling thought. What if even part of the story was real? What if science brushed against forces we don't understand? Scientists dismissed the whole tale as fantasy. They explained the story as confused memories of radar testing or exaggerations from sailors who liked a good yarn. No ship ever vanished, they say. No crew was fused to steel. The Navy flatly denies everything. But the public doesn't always trust denials, especially when the story is this good. And so, the Philadelphia experiment lives on. A mix of fear, wonder, and conspiracy. A ghost story dressed in naval uniforms. A mystery that won't stay buried. Some believe it proves governments play with dangerous science. Others see it as a metaphor for secrecy itself. Either way, it's unforgettable. Think about it. Where did the story start? Who decided the Navy made a ship disappear? A prank? A lie? Or a secret slipped through the cracks? That's the heart of history's best mysteries. They leave room for imagination, for fear, and for the haunting possibility that maybe, just maybe, it happened.
That's it for today's Forgotten Tale. If this story made you raise an eyebrow don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that dusty little bell so you never miss another echo from the past. Drop it in the comments. We're always listening for new echoes. Got a weird bit of history you think we should cover? Until next time, keep your curiosity loud and your history weird.